Margaret, thanks so much for being here.
My great pleasure.
You are on my favorite show.
It's a lot of people's favorite show.
It is the funniest show on television.
I think so, too.
I get the most joy watching Veep than I do any others. Other shows are funny, but I'm smiling ear to ear when I watch Veep. And I think it's because I'm deeply cynical and maybe a bad person.
It's also great writing, and it's very topical. And she's the dream, so yeah.
Let's talk about your character. You are playing an anchor on CBS This Morning.
Right, sort of the queen of morning television.
Did you base this off of any CBS This Morning anchors?
I'm not allowed to answer that. They did. They had a specific person in mind. And
Specifically at CBS This Morning? Digging.
The writers kept telling me a particular person, but she's not a very flattering character, so I don't want to diss her. She's just really an accomplished news person, and she really wants to hold on to her job, and she thinks that Reed's character has absolutely no business being on camera with her and has no real reporter credentials. So she sexually harasses him and flirts with him terribly and is completely unprofessional with him and fires all the beautiful young women. That's what she does.
She's also an accomplished news person who's now in a morning anchor position, which sort of, in many ways, when you watch these formerly accomplished news people suddenly take morning show jobs, you realize it sucks all of the sort of career best out of them that they've had for so long, and now they're doing 4 or 5 minute hits that don't even really go deep into the issues.
No, and they're rated by how they look and how their figure is, and as opposed to their intelligence and their research. So, but she's wonderful character. She's very confident, and she doesn't want to be aged out of her job, and she's got the worst potty mouth of any part I have ever played.
I've only seen the first few episodes, and
oh boy,
from
don't
what
watch it with your mother. What can I tell you?
Reed, when he was here, tells me that the arc gets even better with you. You get so much more stuff to do.
We do. We have a lot to do. I torture him. I mean, I humiliate him. I torture him, and I flirt with him, and I try to ruin his reputation, and but we go on like that.
Do you enjoy? I mean, it's a villainous role. It sounds like. Is it fun doing that?
It's so much fun, and they don't give you the script ahead of time. At least they didn't for my character. So you'd be. I think they write all around the clock, because I would get the pages at 5 in the morning as I'm getting in the car to go to work in LA, and I live in New York, so I was commuting to do Veep while I was also doing Shades of Blue. So that was kind of cool. And
Shades of Blue was in New York, right? So you were going back and forth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we were. So you can't really worry about learning your lines or creating a character if they give you the pages at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they start putting makeup on you at 5:30, and then it's a long day. It was a long shoot day, but they also put the lines right on the camera since I'm a newscaster. So that took the whole fear of.
But to a certain degree, that's relying on someone who has a craft, who's been working for a fair amount of time and knows exactly how to dig into their craft. That they can trust giving you lines at 5 o'clock in the morning, and as much as you say right now, you don't get to do character work, you just know who your character is and you know how to work really fast, I would imagine.
It was one of those, yes, I do, thank you. It was one of those.
Take the compliment.
Thank you very much. It was one of those crazy opportunities that when I met with them, and I read with them, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was saying things like, don't pay any attention to the lines. The lines don't count. And I said, I've been acting since I was 19, and you just told me the lines don't count? I'm in heaven. The writers don't care if I say the lines right. They give you the situation. They want you to know the situation, and then they want you to live it. So whatever is fully going on between the two actors, they want you to incorporate that into what they've written.
Yeah, at the same time, the show is filled with the greatest zingers of any show on television. So how do they make sure that those sort of get in there and land the way that I would imagine they imagined it while writing it?
When they do have the script, and they have the script for a little while longer, then they do the lines as scripted. And then they get that. They have that. And then they sit behind the camera, this huge crew of brilliant executive producers and writers, and they improvise among themselves, and then they call out the lines to you, or they walk over and they tell you lines. So the new way to try it just then.
Have you ever worked like that?
No. Never work like that.
I mean, because you've been in comedies in the past. You've done a fair amount of comedy
Yeah,
in your
but
career.
usually they have enormous. It seems to me that they have enormous confidence in actors. They don't find them at all the enemy. They find them to be a collaborator.
How rare is that?
Rare,
Really?
rare, and they're confident in their ability, and that they're going to get what they need. And you keep doing it till they get a funny one, till they get the right one, till they get something that they can edit it together.
Where do you think that comes from, the actor as the enemy?
Small penis? No. I think it's wanting to control things and not. Part of the creative process, I believe, is letting it go. You create something and then you give birth to it. So if you're too afraid that maybe of what you've created doesn't have a life, then you will not let other people take it and give a voice to it. That's what I think actors do, is give a voice to what the writer has said and also bring themselves to it. So it's really collaborative. So if you really want to control me and not let me bring fully what I have as an artist and an actor to bring to a thing, then no, I didn't mean it that way, I don't want it that way, so you'll never let it grow. You'll never let it have a life. So I think it comes from there.
What's the most difficult time, I mean, without names, that you've ever had in terms of someone trying to control you as an actor rather than sort of letting you do your own work?
I think guest starring on an established show is really hard. Coming in and being the victim du jour or the bad guy.
With the exception of Veep.
Right. Well, I had many of them. They gave me many of them. So when you come to a long-running show, it's a one-off, and they really want you to fit into what they have already established, and you have a new director who doesn't really know it's okay.
So everybody kind of steps on each other's toes at that point. It's not necessarily one person hitting the actor. The director is fighting with the writer and the EP.
Yeah,
and
they
the
have
actor.
to answer to too many people. Too many people not letting them. And that's the great thing about Veep, is that it's HBO, so it is their show from soup to nuts. They control it. They have the freedom to express their really great ideas, and they don't have to answer to anyone but themselves. They don't have a network that will tell them to stop.
Now I have to ask, does the person who they told you the character is based on know?
Oh dear.
Do you know if they know? And do you?
I don't think this person would.
Do you worry
no.
about potentially being interviewed by them on that morning, on said morning show, and then just looking at you going,
How dare you? Some people have come up and said to me, "Oh, you're exactly like her," and I would have no way of knowing that I was exactly like her because I've never worked with her, Jane or her. So that was kind of shocking.
how do I not know this? Because I feel like I know the anchors and I pay attention
I'm not
to
telling
the
him.
anchors.
I am not going to tell him. I'm just not giving it up.
No, I don't want you to give it up here, but I am going to hound you backstage
Okay,
for an answer. So you get to do most of your work with Reed Scott in the series. What was it like working with Reed?
Oh, he's so beautiful, and he's so nice, and he's so young, and he's really smart, and he's part of the team, so he already knew the drill. And he was really gracious when I met him right off the bat. And I flirted shamelessly with him to get the job. So it worked out well. He's really hardworking and charming and totally dedicated to his family and his beautiful new baby, and it was great.
Now, 31 years later, you're working with Ray Liotta since the classic film Something Wild. Is this the first time you've worked with him since then?
Yeah, right. It is. It's his first TV show. That was his Something Wild was his first film, and this is his first TV show. And it's the first time I have. I've run into him. We've seen each other, but I haven't.
So what's that like coming back together?
He's a doll. He's a big old bully. I mean, everyone thinks he is, but he's not. He's kind of a pussycat, and I think he's just delicious in this. I think he's just drunk enough. I think he's just angry enough. I think he's just violent enough. I think he's
Similar
funny.
to Something Wild, right?
Similar to Something Wild. Yeah. And I can't say that my character is overwritten because it's not. So I'm making it up as I go along. So it's really great to have a relationship with him from the past because we're drawing on it, and it's very safe to work with him because we do have that history, and he is really easy to act with. For me, he's really easy to act with.
Because of that history, or just because you have similar ways that you act? Similar
I
process.
think we have similar process. Yeah, yeah, and of course he has a huge burden. He's in almost every scene, and I only come in to play, a recurring role once in a while. So, and he's different with Linda than he is with everybody else in the show. I think that Linda is really an innocent. I think that she's, she wants to be protected by her husband, and she's, yeah, and they've shared the loss of a daughter. And they have a son that was estranged and now is sort of back in the picture. So, of course, the big thing is that he's bisexual. But if you're married to somebody, they're gay. That's like he's gay. So that was the first thing I got to play, was not knowing that my husband was having an affair with a man. And of course, it was 25 years of marriage. It's completely devastating. So that was, when I saw that would be something that I got to act, it was great. And then
it's such an interesting devastation, because that devastation is so much different than a regular affair, not because that the person is bisexual, but because there's a secret that they could never share with you. I mean, I imagine that for a wife, playing that kind of devastation is fascinating.
It was fascinating. It was a really juicy thing to play, and it was great to do it with him. So he gave me a lot of room to do it, and I saw that episode. So I wish they flushed it out more. They keep promising me they will. We'll have that fight that you would imagine would have. But that was Linda coming back from being intimidated in a store, because they're the most corrupt cops in the world. They're sociopaths. So.
So what was it like? I mean, two very different characters. You're going back and forth from L.A. to New York, shooting Shades of Blue and shooting Veep. So you're moving from one character to the other all the time. What was that like?
It's great fun.
Yeah.
It was, a first class ride in a plane and check into a hotel, and then you get put on great clothes, and you're running the studio as a newswoman, and then you come back to New York and you get in a van and you go to Long Island City and you put on blue collar clothes and you make pasta, and then it was fantastic, and your whole world is wrapped up in this guy and you're home, so it's a completely wonderful opportunity to play the domestic and the professional.
As I said, you and Ray Liotta sort of got your first. It was both of your first film roles, right? And Something Wild.
No, my first movie was Pretty in Pink.
Oh, excuse me. But following Pretty in Pink, you did Something Wild, right? As I said, classic movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I love Jonathan Demme. What was it like working with Jonathan Demme? I've heard he keeps an extremely loose set, and there's constant characters walking around the set all the time that are not even actors. They're just like weird friends of his.
That's what it's like.
I love it so much.
The music is really important to him.
Feelies.
Yeah. He loves to have great music around him. The best idea wins. It's really collaborative. He lets you run with your interpretation of it. Like the dance scenes were really fun, and usually big prom scenes or party scenes or wedding scenes are tedious as hell to shoot, but not on that one. When we did the high school reunion in that one, it was a pleasure. It was really, really a lot of fun. And his enthusiasm for the work is very contagious. So that was just really dark. And that character was sort of really, really tough and really, really confident and very sexual.
Your
yeah, the one I played in that one. So, and then Ray dumps me at a 7-Eleven, so that was fun.
Yeah, it's a great scene. But she's an interesting character because she's maybe a con man, maybe not a con man. You're not sure where she falls into this world with Ray Liotta's character, who's clearly an ex-con and psychotic. And
psychotic, yeah.
It's his first film role. I mean, it's a star-making performance on his part. I think it blew people's minds at the time. He got Goodfellas just a few years later.
Yeah,
basically.
So, yeah.
What was it like working with him then? Did everybody have a sense on set like, oh, this is going to take off?
Well, like most actors, I was more concerned with myself. So, I wanted him to twirl me around so my face was on camera, and he did. And we worked out together. So I thought that he was, it was a lot of heavy hitters. I mean, Melanie was on the set, Melanie Griffith and Jeff Daniels. So there were some pretty big stars right there. It just felt like everybody worked together. Nobody really thought, I don't think Jonathan puts up with someone thinking that they're a star on his set. I think everybody's there to act and make the best movie they can. And also, Melanie had an innate glamour to her, and does. So that was always fun to be around. She's so feminine, and Ray was so masculine and dangerous. So that balance was something that was palpable. And my character actually comments on it. I mean, I look at him and I laugh, and I watch him look. I mean, I was commenting on his behavior a lot through it, because I think it was a good way to foreshadow what was happening. And
Jeff Daniels, nothing really like that character either in that film. He's not really lanky, geekish, like awkward guy.
No, he's not. No. Yeah. No, he was, no. But that was, he looks like a movie star when you see him waiting to go on. I mean, he's tall and broad-shouldered and crazy handsome, and then he acts, yeah. It's another good example of being allowed to act, being allowed to fully embody your character, and the director wasn't afraid, or the director wanted you to do that, and the writer wanted you to do that, so.
Now, you've done an incredible amount of theater work, right?
Yeah.
You told me backstage that you were in China not that long ago doing the Pentagon Papers.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was a great experience.
I can't imagine what that was like and what the audience was taking from that, considering, for those who don't know, the Pentagon Papers is Daniel Ellsberg. He was a whistleblower in the late 60s, early 70s. And
Okay, the whole, yeah.
Yeah, and the whole idea is that you're going to China, where there is really no such thing as free media or whistleblowers.
Exactly. So that's the show featured Katharine Graham, who ran the Washington Post. Who's an incredible woman in her own right. Her biography is such a great read. And she was brave enough to let her paper publish the Pentagon Papers when the New York Times was being taken to court by the government to stop them from printing it. So they were kind of sneaked out at night by like a deep throat and published in, she agreed to. And so it threatened her life, it threatened her livelihood, it threatened the health of the newspaper. And there still are very few women who own and run newspapers. So it was quite a brave move on her part. So, and then the trial that happened afterwards. So me and this incredible group of actors from LA worked with LA Theater Works, and they played multiple roles, and I just played the one role of Katharine Graham. And we toured for like 3 weeks. And we don't speak Chinese, so the sides of the proscenium were translated into the Chinese, so the audience could read it and listen to it at the same time.
What was it like being a part of that show? And then, I mean, obviously it was during the Obama administration. Now we're in a different administration. But how did that show and that story affect your take on the current administration right now, and essentially the process at which whistleblowers are handled in the government?
While we were doing it, it was big news that Obama was approving phone taps.
He cracked down on whistleblowers. We shouldn't sort of give him all this credit.
No, I'm not giving him credit for this. Exactly.
Yeah.
He approved, the tapping of our private cell phones without a warrant. So we were answering lots of questions from the audience about how our First Amendment rights are protected when your president does that. And the answer is it's a democracy. You have to participate. You have to curb the executive branch. So that's... How is it? What was your question?
I was just wondering how it affected your take. Did it make you feel more politically active and engaged, or were you already beforehand?
I am pretty politically active. I get it from my parents. Were passionate, and I just think it's part of your role in a democracy to participate, certainly to vote and to support candidates you believe in, and to stay educated. So it made me very proud to represent our country in China with these wonderful Bill of Rights. Yeah, and they need protection.
You're also incredibly engaged in charity, right? You have a number of charities that you're involved with. Can you talk about them?
Yeah, I work with women in crisis pregnancies through several organizations. One of them is Good Counsel, and we help several homes here in New York City. We help women carry their babies to term and give them health care and help them get educated and back to continue their education if that's what they want, and help remove them from an environment if it were unhealthy, and take care of the women and their babies for at least a year, and help get them job placement and give them a real choice. I work with this organization called Let's Send These Kids to School. We support 6 to 8 youths in Uganda that are usually refugees from Rwanda. among other places and all the things that are happening in Uganda. And we send them to school because school there is private. So we have several fundraisers. And that was started like on Facebook. My friend Richard Nesbitt got an email from somebody in Uganda saying, "Hello, Mr. Richard, can you help me go to school?" And he actually responded, and we found out that it was true, that he was a refugee, that it wasn't a scam. And Richard delivered laptops. He went over, and so we just raised money to keep a different group of kids going to school there. It's very... Actually, Veep let me out to do a fundraiser. It got me home on time to do it, one episode. So that's pretty exciting, and we know each of their individual stories. That made us feel really good that we could actually deeply connect with 6 people and improve their lives without any middleman. The only cost was getting Richard over there. So it's great, and we get updates from them and letters from them, so it's pretty personal. And what's the other one I do? Send these kids to school. That'll come back to me.
Is it St. Jude?
What?
Is it St. Jude? It's not St. Jude's, is it?
Oh, it's St. Joseph's.
St. Joseph, excuse me.
Yeah, Soup Kitchen. Every Saturday, me and about 11 other people, if not more, and other volunteers can show up. It's a very open-ended thing. We feed 400 people. Wow. We prepare the food and set up and feed 400 people. So that, again, makes you feel like you're doing something to connect to the other people in New York.
Where is that kitchen?
Down on 6th Avenue and West 4th Street at St. Joseph's Catholic Church. So.
Anybody can show up and volunteer and help serve?
Yes, from 10 to 3. Anyone can show up and help prepare and help serve. Yeah,
That's
just have to
fantastic.
show up. Thanks.
Let's get some questions from you, the audience, right there.
Hello. Thank you for being here. So, out of all the roles you played in your career, which one was the most challenging for you?
Stage is usually the most challenging. I played Jackie Kennedy Onassis in Jackie on Broadway for 6 months at the Belasco Theater, and it was my first Broadway show. And that's 8 shows a week, and it's a lot of rehearsal beforehand, 6 days a week, and then you carry the show for 2 hours along with a brilliant cast. But that was very challenging physically and endurance-wise. So stage tends to be the most challenging of all of them, and that I would have, and it was also therefore the most rewarding. So, yeah, thanks.
Next question.
Hey, Margaret. Thanks for being here. I know you came out of a soap opera background at first. How has that experience helped you in your acting, like later on?
I usually bite people's heads off if they use that phrase, training ground, because, which you didn't. So thank you. It was my first job, but it was a real job. I competed to get it. Ray started there too, on soap operas. And I competed and got a job on The Edge of Night at 19, and worked for 6 months on it and loved it. And that was really my first time on camera. I had been trained as an actor at Hofstra University out on Long Island. And I'd done plays all my life, so as a kid. So to be hired as a professional, to have expectations, to create a character, to be on time, to know the lines, it was fantastic. And I worked with Kim Hunter, who had just come off of the Planet of the Apes movies and had won an Academy Award as Stella in Streetcar Named Desire. And so Frances Fisher. So I was working with, right from the get-go, really top-notch actors. And I learned from them. It was great.
And not to call it a training ground at all, but I imagine you have to learn your lines very quickly on a soap opera, right? Like, aren't you shooting an incredible amount of scenes a day?
Well, that was a half hour, and they shot it like live, so the camera would go from set to set. So that was really fun and exciting. And if anybody messed up, you started again from the top. So there was performance energy, like theater. And they gave your pages, they gave you a script ahead of time. Oh, okay. And when I did As the World Turns for 2 or 3 years, that was an hour, and that was a lot of material. So you get really very good at reading it, dropping the pages, and saying the lines, which is not any different from any other. Sometimes if it's a lot to do, you can commit it to memory and make some really strong choices, but I usually find reading the script, what the director, what the writer has in mind, then the collaboration with the director, and what I really want to try as an actor is the prep that I do. But if you're playing a historical character like Jackie or Katharine Graham, there's so much research. I mean, there's so much research you can do, and that's what's so much more fun about theater, is that you have it for a while so you can dig in deeper. So in front of the camera, you have to live it. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more.
Hi, Margaret. As a New Yorker, what are some of your favorite things about the city?
Well, the thing I have to tell everybody is about the magical place. It's, what is that stop on the subway before the Staten Island ferry? Bowling Green? Is it Bowling Green?
I think so.
You get off at Bowling Green, and there's the magical place. Now, if I tell you it's the sea glass carousel, it takes all the fun out of it. But if you just go there and ride on it at sunset, it's the magical place. That's my new favorite thing about New York.
That is a very original favorite thing.
It's so beautiful.
Usually people are like finales in Soho or something. That was really great.
Well, rosé and oysters on the cafes that go into the river are also pretty fantastic.
Margaret, it's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Veep is on Sunday nights. It's the funniest show on television. And what night is Shades of Blue on for people to see it?
Sunday nights.
Are they competing?
I'm competing with myself. I've never had that pleasure before. Let's see who wins.
Well, thankfully, all of you have on demand now, and you can choose when to watch whichever one. Margaret Colin, everybody. Thank you so much, Margaret.